Alright, so Among Us VR just released, and everyone's loving it. There's just one problem. It's completely unplayable if you're blind. What do I mean by that? Well, stick around, and I'll tell you the 3 reasons you should avoid Among Us VR if you're blind or visually impaired. Number 3. For those of you who don't know, Among Us is a game all about convincing your friends not to throw you out of an airlock. You gotta do and say whatever it takes. And whether that's through having a solid alibi or just lying through your teeth, you need to be able to get your story straight. And you can't really do that if you can't read anybody's names. You won't be able to know who you're in a room with, to say, hey, I was just in electrical with whoever. You won't know who you were passing in the hallway, and if somebody's like, hey, look out for that one guy, he's being weird, well, you're kinda just screwed. Now, being unable to read nameplates is a fairly common issue with us blind gamers, especially with people moving around so quickly. This game actually takes it a step further by not allowing you to get close to a player, assuming you can find one standing still. As you can see here, whenever I try to get close to someone to read their name, they just disappear. That's not cool. But Helix, I hear you saying. What about the colors? Can't you just look at those? And that's a good point. Most of the colors are pretty easy to tell apart. But something I learned about myself, I'm apparently colorblind, to some degree at least, because while it's easy for me to tell the difference between red and blue, or pink and green, there's some colors that look pretty much identical, like these two here that you're seeing now. What is that, white and teal, or cyan, whatever it's called? Yeah, those are identical to me. Same thing with lime and yellow. Identical. I'm pretty sure they're not supposed to be, but apparently I'm also colorblind. And I obviously have just a mild form of some kind of colorblindness, but and most people do. But it's more common and more severe in the blind community. And as far as I can tell, there are no colorblind options, or any accessibility options for that matter. There's no labels that say that you can turn on that say red or blue instead of just having the color. There is one thing you can do, but it's your choice. So if I turn my name hiding on, it'll say blue instead of TripleHelixxx, but I control that. So if another player has their name turned on, you just see their name instead of the color. And if you can't see the colors or the names, you won't be able to play the game effectively or vote effectively either. Number 2. So let's talk about the second biggest problem of this game. This unnecessarily huge floating monstrosity. See that? That's me jumping and I still can't reach it, because it's about 10 or 12 feet in the air. And on top of that, it's got what's called a billboarding effect, which means it always faces the player. So even if you somehow were able to get close enough to read it, you'd only be able to read the center, because the moment you tried to go to the edge, you would no longer be in the center of its field of view, and so it would turn toward you, thus making it impossible to read the edges. But that's a moot point, since it's impossible to read regardless. This screen is a vital piece of the game. It contains information like your lobby code, which you need to invite friends. It also is where you vote. So if you can't read it, you won't be able to invite your friends because you can't read the code, and you won't be able to properly make an informed voting decision, and so if you can't even see the buttons, you'll just be voting randomly. Number 1. The fucking map menu. Seriously? This thing on its own is reason enough to not buy the game, and that's why it's at the number 1 spot. Being able to see the map is essential to gameplay. Since there are no markers in the world, it's the only way to see where your tasks are, and if you can't see the map, then you just wander around aimlessly, hoping to accidentally come across one of your tasks before you get killed. I forgot to get footage, but this is also how you do imposter sabotage. So you just click the different sections of the map and it does different things, but again, if you can't see what you're clicking on, you're just doing it randomly, and you won't be very effective at all. Now the reason this is such a big issue, and why it's at the number 1 spot, is because, well, the developers decided to do that dumb thing where they stick the map to your face. Which means if you look left or right, or try to move forward or backward, it just follows you. here's me trying to walk forward about 8 feet in my play space physically, and it pushes it forward. And then I back up, and it pulls back with me, which means you can't get closer to the map to be able to read it, which is a bad thing. Oh, there is also this little handle that you can use to move the map up and down and like forward and backward a foot for whatever reason, but yeah, you still can't move it anywhere near the closest you need, so it's kind of pointless. So there you have it. 3 reasons you should absolutely avoid Among Us VR if you're blind or visually impaired. You can't see the nameplates, you can't see the big voting screen thing, and you certainly can't get close enough to see the map or any of your tasks. I would give this game a solid 1 out of 10. Do not recommend. You know what I would recommend though? Instead of paying $10 for this, go pay $0 for VRChat. It's free on all clients, including the non-VR desktop version. Look up the Among Us world. It's been out long before this was ever a thing, and it's 10 times as better, in my opinion. And again, it's free. So yeah, check it out. Not this. But that's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up would be appreciated. Subscribe if you want to see more content in the future, or check out the playlist if you want to see the stuff I've already done. Or hey, maybe yell at me about something in the comments. I don't know, isn't that what people do on the internet? Anyway, as always, I'm Helix, and I will see you in the next one.